There must be a reason why HS Strut is America's favorite brand of turkey hunting calls and accessories, and this must be it. 15 new products this year, including the Wood Witch glass and composite friction call, the Palmer Hoot Tube, the ultimate owl locator call, the Undertaker choke tube for consistent shotgun patterns again and again, the two-way strut seat, impossible terrain has never been so comfortable, and 5 new instructional videos from the HS Strut University, including So You Want to Be a Turkey Hunter, the definitive source for new and beginning turkey hunters, and 4 additional comprehensive video courses complete with call that go in-depth on friction calls, mouth calls, locator calls, and box calls. Look inside your favorite hunting magazine for this flyer coming soon from HS Strut, America's favorite brand of turkey hunting calls and accessories.
To me, turkey hunting is such a one-on-one sport where you're putting your skills and knowledge and calling ability against a wild animal.
It's me outsmarting that old gobbler. It's me communicating with him. It's me getting him into gun range. It's me getting him in with an archery range.
It's time with friends and family in the springtime when the birds are gobbling, the excitement of the hunt and calling, communicating with the wild birds.
He's still out there in the distance and you trying to, persuade him to come on in. It's just the excitement level.
It's very exciting to go challenge a bird one-on-one and talk to him and make him come to see what you're talking about.
Each time you go out, it's a new learning experience, and there's always that hype and that excitement that only the wild turkey can bring.
It's just a one-on-one contact. It's fooling.
All those things add up to just a great time in the outdoors and great memories.
It's wonderful turkey hunting just about in driving distance of any hunter that would like to get started.
When I was a boy growing up in the Northeast, there was only fall seasons. Now you have spring seasons throughout.
You can find the wild turkey almost in every state except for one, and that's Alaska. They even got them in Hawaii. There's 4 subspecies in the United States of the wild turkey. There's the Merriam's, the Eastern, the Rio Grande, and the Osceola.
The eastern wild turkey is pretty much found the eastern half of the United States. It's a turkey that's been probably the most hunted, maybe in my opinion my favorite and the most difficult to hunt.
If you drew a line from North Dakota on down, South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, anything east of those states, that's where the eastern turkey is primarily found.
He's usually dark in color, a really dark colored bird, and his tails will be a buff color. You know, what I like about the eastern turkey is he's really vocal. But also about the eastern turkey, he's tough to hunt.
The Osceola turkey in Florida is somewhat smaller, skinnier in appearance, and they have longer spurs, but they're real dark. They're real dark in appearance. They have a dark tail, and their overall color is a lot darker than eastern.
Also, the Osceola is within his wings. You will see the bars are not as dominant in white as the eastern or the Merriam species.
Merriam turkeys are primarily found in the mountainous regions on into the Black Hills in the western states where there's mountains. Not are they limited to mountains, but the river bottoms, but they're mainly a western turkey.
You can identify a Merriam in the coloration of their tail. They got more of a cream-colored tail and a shorter tail than an eastern. The rest of the gobbler looks pretty much the same, black tip breast feathers, head coloration, and beard's somewhat smaller and not as big in diameter, but mainly it's the coloration of the tail. The cream color goes all the way up on the back of the Merriam.
The Merriam has a funny gobble. It sounds like a domestic bird when he gobbles, but he's shorter legged than the easterns as well as the other species.
The Rio Grande is somewhat smaller than eastern turkey, and their fan is also shorter, and they have a buff or a brownish coloration. They don't have as much cream as the Merriam. It doesn't run up on the back.
Rios today are primarily found in the south or the southwest, mainly Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and also up in the Pacific Northwest, mainly in Washington.
Something about a Rio, they cover a lot of ground. Areas to look for Rios in, around watering holes. You find water, you're going to find your Rios.
Turkey hunting tactics don't differ tremendously. The basic thing that differs is the terrain that you hunt. Basically, a turkey needs water every day of his life, especially gobblers. They're not looking for food in the springtime, but you want to hunt areas where the hens go to, so obviously you're going to need a food source. But water is a key, real important role no matter where you go. You get into the desert country of Texas where water is scarce. A lot of times those gobblers will even go and drink in the cattle tanks.
All turkeys gobble, all turkeys yelp. No, we don't have to hunt for turkeys differently because they're different species. They all do the same thing.
Turkey identification is real important, especially in turkey hunting. You have to identify the gobbler, the male species, which is legal in the state that you're hunting, and hens reproduce the young turkeys, so you don't want to kill them in the spring season.
The Tom's beard, the reason we call him a long beard is because one, his beard is long and it protrudes from his breast. And the Jake is usually short in length. A Jake is a bird that's a younger bird, and the long beard is the adult bird.
A tom turkey will have about, on average, 8 to 10 inches of real, what we call wattles, and his head will go up, and his head will turn colors. It'll turn red, white, and blue. It'll change while birds are coming in. And that's why, a lot of people, ask the question, is turkeys colorblind? And so I believe, with all honesty, his head wouldn't change different colors if they couldn't see colors.
A wild hen is a lot smaller than a gobbler, both standing upright and in weight. And a hen is more brown or buff. She's not as long. If the birds are flying, you see that a hen is a lot shorter overall than a gobbler.
And you'll see her feathers will protrude up to the back of her neck, almost at the top of her skull.
But the coloration in the head is what will really give them away. Usually their heads are very drab colored. There might be a little red, but it's a much duller color. They're very rarely you'll ever see any more color than that, versus the old gobbler will have that big white top notch on top of his head.
Two types of gobblers. A Jake is a younger, more immature gobbler. Generally is going to have a beard anywhere from 3 to 6 inches protruding, usually comes straight out of his chest. And on his legs, he's going to have spurs that look like buttons. And as they grow older, those spurs get longer, kind of like a deer's antler. And that's how you determine the age of a turkey.
Another way to tell or distinguish the difference between a Jake and a longbeard also is when a Jake does strut, the middle feathers in his tail fan are going to be a little bit longer than the rest of his tail. They're the first to mature, and the others will grow out to that length.
Turkeys will eat a lot of different crop foods. They'll eat a lot of insects. Primarily, it's a lot of seed and insects is the main diet.
I've even seen turkeys that have eaten a baby garter snake and had it in their crawl after we've harvested one and found out what it's been digesting.
He'll eat a balanced diet. A tame turkey, well, he'll eat whatever's in front of him. If there's a pile of corn there, he'll eat until he can't move. He'll just keep eating that corn. But a wild turkey will only eat what is necessary for him to survive on.
Wild turkeys are totally different than their cousins, the domestic turkey. And the wild turkey's out there trying to survive. And ever since they come out of the egg, something's been trying to eat them. So they don't like any type of movement or activity in their area, and they react a lot quicker than we do to danger or movement.
A wild turkey is pretty smart, and probably the reason why he's so smart is he's hunted 365 days a year. Whether it be by man or predator, he's always being hunted. He's very sharp. He has eyes that are actually on the side of his head. He can see 300 degrees to where a human can see maybe 180 degrees with peripheral vision. His hearing is tremendous. Some people say as high as 8 times better than a human being. And what's important by that is if you was out there and made a call, he'd know exactly where you was. Not in the area where you were, but exactly to the point of what tree you're sitting beside.
I called to a turkey one time and had been calling, but he didn't actually come to me, and I left that spot. I come back about an hour later, and there he was. He had remembered exactly where I had been calling from.
He can see 6 to 10 times greater than a human. He can pick up movement way quicker than what a human can. That's what makes him tough to hunt, is slipping in close to him, then calling him into gun range.
Wild turkeys have a very extensive vocabulary that they use to communicate on a daily basis, and it could mean tons of different things, from the sexual aspects of a turkey's life to the flock aspects of a turkey's life to alarm sounds and many different things. And they use that vocabulary extensively, and they communicate with each other.
Before they ever even hatch out of the egg, the old hen will sit on that nest, and she'll start imprinting to those young birds in the eggshell. She'll and she's talking to those young chicks, and those chicks they'll start peeping and come. When they come out of that eggshell, that hen calls to them. Communication is vital to their life and their survival.
At some parts of the country, turkeys are very vocal. Like you get into the Midwest in the springtime of the year, and the concentration of turkeys in specific woodlots or wooded areas is generally higher than where I live in the Northeast, where you won't hear as many gobblers on a specific tract of ground.
The gobble is a sound that the male or the tom emits to attract hens and also let other turkeys know that he's in the area, and that he's just vocalizing, telling the whole world that he's the dude out there that day.
They're telling all the other gobblers, hey, shut up, I'm the boss over here. And all of a sudden another turkey gobbles, no, you shut up. Then they start this pecking order thing. They fight for dominance. As days progress and the weather progresses, it gets warmer and days get longer, the hens start calling. Now he's gobbling to lure the hens to him.
Sometimes also a gobbler will gobble at any loud noise. I mean, anything. He's really high strung. He's trying to find as many hens as he can for his harem, and he'll gobble at just about anything. I mean, it's been said that you can go out and slam your car door and make a turkey gobble, and that's about the truth of it.
The reason a hen yelps is communication. It's a contact call. I mean, there's different types of yelps, and when they yelp with different types of excitement. You know, a subtle yelp is, if it's a contact call, she just first walked in there to that gobbler, she's saying, hey, I'm here. I'm coming to you. But if she gets excited, she's showing excitement. She's saying, hey, listen to me. I'm in love with you. Gobble to me. Talk to me. I'm coming to you, big boy.
And one of the things to remember whenever you're making the basic yelp of a wild turkey is this, is that each turkey sounds a little bit different. Just like my voice, I'm sure, sounds a little bit different than yours. So when you're making those calls and you're listening to that yelp, all right, realize when you're using it, if you have the basic principle of that call down, it'll work for you.
Cutting is an excitement call made by all turkeys. All turkeys meaning the gobbler and the hen. Gobblers will do it a lot in the fall. But when we're talking about the hen doing it, she's been dominant. She's showing aggression. She's showing excitement. She's calling with feeling. She's saying, I mean business. All you other hens, shut up. I'm the main. I'm the brood hen. Gobblers gobble to me because I really mean business.
The other basic call of the wild turkey, again, would be the cluck. And a cluck is used for a lot of different things. It's a single note. And what that is, that could be general conversation as other turkeys are around them and they're just keeping peace amongst each other as they're walking through the woods, scratching, looking for food. A simple cluck is peaceful and relaxing, and it just means contentment. But put a little more feeling into that, and then you'll see all of a sudden the heads will pop up and they're looking for danger.
A purr is both a feeding call and also a sound of contentment. In the fall of the year, it's a great call to use in hunting because when wild turkeys visually see each other, they purr. But the purr is just a soft, vibrating sound that all turkeys make, and especially in, again, in feeding or in short-range communications.
When you hear a spitting drum, that means that the bird's, he's real close, and it's part of a ritual that they go through in the spring that they actually trying to get the hens to come on out and let them, you know, get a look at the hen, and but he's getting in close. Things are almost getting ready to happen.
When that old gobbler's fanned out and he's strutting for that hen, and he actually thinks that that hen's right there, he may be strutting for you coming into your call, and it'll and you'll hear him spit and drum, and that's really an exciting time because you know he's real close. That's a favorite time for every spring turkey hunter.
Alarm putt, that means the gig is up. That means something spooked that bird. That bird's become nervous. It's sharp sounding. Nervous. If you want that old bird to throw his head up when he's within range, just do the alarm putt.
A tree call is a soft, muffled sound of yelps, although I believe a tree call can also be clucks with a mixture of yelps. A tree call is the soft early morning sounds that a hen makes when they're on the roost, when they're just waking up and starting to stretch and preen their feathers.
The beginning hunter, the basic things that he or she would need to know is how to duplicate the yelp, the cluck, and probably the purr. The three most important to me.
If I had to go to the turkey woods tomorrow and have 3 calls to use, or 3 vocalizations, they would be the yelp, and I'd know how to do it a couple different ways, either very soft and very loud. Learn how to control the volume. That's more important than anything. The cluck, which is that general communication call, just letting that turkey know where I'm at as he's approaching, and the purr, which is that contentment feeding style call.
If I was going to learn one turkey call, it'd be the basic yelp of the turkey. If I was going to learn 2, it'd be the yelp and the cluck. Because with the cluck, you can actually change your vocabulary. You can go from clucks to cackles to cutting, but the basic yelp is the most important call of the turkey language.
Out of those 3 vocalizations, cutting is very important. It's a locating call. It's an excited call to call turkeys. But learn to yelp. If you can yelp, anyone can yelp. If you can yelp, you can call turkeys. In addition to that, I do the tree call, the soft early morning, let them know that you're a hen in there. That's also part of yelping. And your yelping that you do depends on your feeling and your mood. You call, relaxed, or you call excited. But cutting and yelping, if you can cut and yelp, basically that's all you need to kill turkeys.
Most good turkey hunters are just like a pro bass fisherman that opens his tackle box. He's got every color worm and crankbait that he needs for that particular day. Most good turkey hunters carry a different variety of calls to use depending on the situation.
You have locator calls, you have friction calls, you have diaphragm calls, you have box calls.
There are different calls designed to locate turkeys, and those calls will do nothing but pretty much agitate a gobbler in the springtime of the year to give his position away and get him to gobble.
There's a variety of different types of locators. Some of them are in the early morning. The first one you use is the barred owl. As the day progresses, another great one would be the crow call.
You can use the owl, you can use a goose call, you can use a crow call, you can use your box call. But a locating call is exactly what it says. It locates turkeys for you to help you gain a better position to be able to hunt that bird.
Early AM, the sun's just starting to come out, the sky's just lightening a little bit, the little songbirds are starting to sing. Your best locator call is a barred owl hooter. It's something that those gobblers hear all the time, natural to turkey's environment throughout the United States, and it's loud.
This is a barred owl call called the Palmer Hoot Tube from Hunter Specialties. It's a great sound. It's a natural sound of the barred owl that you use to locate turkey gobblers in the spring of the year.
And usually that old turkey will sound off early in the morning when you do this. I always use the cadence of who cooks for you, who cooks for you all. Who cooks for you, who cooks for you all.
Early morning, the barred owl is a great locator call, but as the morning progresses, the crows start to wake up. That's another great locator call. And a crow call is great to use all day long, depending on your state that you hunt.
And when I use a crow call, a lot of times I'm going to hit them again with just one loud, startling note because I want to shock that turkey into gobbling at something loud. And it would be just one note like this.
Those quick, short bursts will get that turkey to gobble. And by doing just a short burst of sound, by the time your noise is done, you're hearing him gobble back at you. If you keep calling, you'll drown your own ears out and you won't hear him, and he'll be gobbling for you. You just defeated your own purpose by overcalling.
But anytime you're using any crow calls or any calls, a lot of times you want to start off maybe not just hammering it. You want to start off not so loud, and then you get into it. Because that bird may be right out there real close and you don't want to sound like a 1,000-pound crow there. You might scare him a little bit. So always keep that in mind. You back up a little bit. Same way with any type of friction call. Start off light, then build on up to a higher frequency.
Another great locator call, and I kind of use it as like my back pocket style locator call. If nothing else is working, I'm going to try to use a gobble call. And one thing to remember before we even get into it is safety. When you imitate a gobble out in the woods, that's what other hunters are hunting. So you want to use it with extreme caution.
Very rarely do you hear an old dominant gobbler not respond to another challenging gobble by another gobbler that's subdominant to him. By using this call, he thinks there's another gobbler sounding off in his area, and he'll usually gobble back at it.
Another great time to use this call, and it works real well, is when you got gobblers that's hung up and he's out of gun range or whatever, say he's 100 yards, 125 yards. When I'm working him, I've got him excited on the hen call, he's progressing to me to hurry up and make his mind, to make him progress even faster. I may even throw in a gobble, a jake gobble.
Another locating call is a hawk call, or red-tailed hawk, or chicken hawk, a lot of people call them. It's a high-pitched whistle, and in the middle of the day, if nothing else is working, it's a lot like fishing, throwing out different lures. Locating calls or turkey calls, you can always try something else. It's real simple to use, just a high-pitched shriek of a red-tailed hawk.
That might work when nothing else works. You might come in there and hit a bird. If you know a bird's in the air, you might hit him with that hawk call, and you might just trigger him off to, make him gobble. There he is right there. He's over on that ridge.
You've located him now, we've made him gobble. It's early morning, we know where he's at. What I'm trying to do now is get in as close as possible. Now, from my scouting, I know where every creek, every fence, everything that could cause that gobbler to hang up is at. I want to make it as easy as possible for that gobbler to come to me. So what I'm going to do now is stilling ground, meaning getting close as possible to him, setting down, then I go to work on him. And that work is calling to him.
The box call is probably one of the oldest type turkey calls on the market today. It has very deep roots in turkey hunting history.
And I really think that they're real popular because they sound like turkeys. And anyone can use them. They're real easy to use. They have a great sound. They sound real in the woods.
A lot of people harvest a lot of bird with the box call. And the reason behind this, if you'll walk out at 100 yards and listen to that box, a lot of people think it's more realistic than the other call's been made.
And they really work great in windy conditions. They seem to cut through the wind and travel much farther than any other turkey call.
But if you ever wanted a call that you could rely on year after year after year, some of the box calls produce some of the best sounds that you've ever heard.
To do the basic yelp on a box call, all I'm going to do is take the paddle out and let it slide across the lid, and I'll have the basic yelp. As it comes in, you're going to hear the high and low note. As it gets closer to the center, you're going to hear the low note of the yelp.
One common thing I see everywhere is that anyone that picks up a box call wants to pick the lid up. And the best way and the easiest way to use this call is to simply let the paddle work. Don't pick it up. You should apply different amounts of pressure to see this, listen to the sounds you acquire. But just pull it across. Let the call work for you. Simply move it back and forth without picking it up. You can hear that wood sound up close, but at a distance in the woods, the turkeys aren't going to hear that. And it helps you achieve a real good rhythm. You start short and build.
One drawback to box calls is every little thing you do, they make noise. But a unique thing that we have, all of our box calls have the little button here. You push in, you turn it, it locks the lid in place. No more noise. So you don't got to worry about putting anything between the lid and the walls.
But there's several different ways to hold a box call, but you really need to work with it and find the one that you like, that suits you the best, and you need to stick with it and practice it. And you don't want to be caught in the woods without a box call.
A friction call is just what it says. It's friction. It's two different pieces of material rubbing against each other to create friction that produces the sound of the wild turkey.
There's a wide variety of friction calls, so you can achieve different sounds. More volume, less volume, different tonal qualities, higher pitched, lower pitched, raspy, clear, just so you can sound like all the different turkey voices that are out there. There's different types of strikers that make different sounds, and you'll personally find something that you like the sound of, but more importantly, you should find a call that works good for you, you have confidence in, can make the sounds, but the turkeys respond to it very well. And that may be a high-pitched scratchy yelp, it may be a clear yelp, and if you have several of these friction calls, you can change and use different calls in a hunting situation, see which one the bird responds to.
On this style call, there is a few different components. First of all, you have the plain surface, which on this particular call is glass, just like plain window glass. It's laid in a pan. This is like a resonator. If you look at a guitar, this is like the back piece of a guitar. And on the bottom, inside of this there's a sound chamber, and it's almost just like a musical instrument. The sound waves, the vibrations are collected here through the glass and sent out through the sound chamber down here. But the striker is very intricate too, and it looks like this is a carbon rod with a bell at the end. But if this didn't have the bell in the end, it wouldn't collect any of the vibrations. So what it does, it sends all the vibrations that are collected on the striker part up through the bell, and that's what creates the noise. It's actually a very intricate musical instrument. When you place the striker on the surface of the call, whether it's glass, slate, aluminum, what have you, what you want to do if you're first starting out is to lay it flat. And then what you want to do is just tilt that striker back and just use the very back edge. And it's not quite a 45-degree angle, but it's probably 27.5 degrees. But you want to just use the back edge of that striker. And once you have that angle, you can make a noise on the call.
To do the basic yelp on the call, I'm going to take that striker, set it against the surface. Once I've got the striker on the surface, it actually never has to leave the playing surface. And I'm just going to make like a long oval to make the yelp.
One thing to remember with this style of call also is that they are completely waterproof. And if you use a carbon striker like the one that comes with this Black Widow or an acrylic striker, it'll work in any weather condition. Where wood will not work in the rain, but as long as you have a carbon or acrylic, you're in great shape.
On any of the friction calls, you can change strikers and change your tone or your different types of sounds on the surface. You can also change your sounds by moving your striker from the edge to the center. Achieve different sounds. Take the same call and put a wood striker on, it's going to sound totally different.
Sounds real, doesn't it?
Diaphragm turkey calls is probably one of the best inventions for the turkey hunter to ever come along. Reason being, it's kind of like candy. It's in your mouth and not in your hands, which cuts down a lot of the movement, and that's what the wild turkey picks up on, is that movement.
And I also think the realism out of the calls now, with the new designs and the new cuts in the calls, the realism is there. Years ago, we had a single reed, one single layer of latex, or a double reed was the big new thing. And those are basically clear calls. And a lot of turkeys sound clear. But with the cuts and the designs in the calls now, you can achieve so many more different types of sounds.
First of all, let me explain to you what the call is made of. Tape, in this particular call, which is a premium flex, is made of plastic, the frame is, and latex. This is an instrument. The more pressure you put on the latex with your tongue, the higher the note. The less pressure, the lower the note.
First of all, put it in the roof of your mouth and get used to it. Wall it around. It's probably going to feel like a wad of peanut butter to start with, and you're not going to like it if it's hung up in the roof of your mouth. But put the call in, let it go up the roof of your mouth, and then let it bring it forward, and it ends up setting in a little bit of an angle. It don't set flat, where most guys pick a mouth call, they think it's got to set flat, but it will not set flat. It sets in a little bit of an angle, and then take, for instance, this is your tongue right here, and you roll your tongue up and you hit that latex, and you force an air over the top of your tongue to hit that latex. And the way I like to put it, it's like you got a wad of bubble gum and you've been chewing that bubble gum for some time now, and you got it real soft, and you start touching that gum with your tongue and you start blowing air and a bubble comes out. Well, the same principle on this mouth call. You start touching that latex real lightly, and you start blowing it, trying to get a bubble to come out, and you'll get a little sound that comes out of it.
Now that's with a lot of pressure. With less pressure, it's going to sound raspier. Now with more pressure, and I'm going to drop it off to get low. I'm going to go high-low. Now I'm going to make it all in one motion. I'm going to speed it up now to produce the yelp. And that's how you produce the yelp.
Even if you can get just a little bit of sound out of it, you've accomplished so much, because just a little cluck a lot of times when that bird's right out there at 30, 40 steps and you need him in to move a little bit, it gives you an opportunity to get away with, without having to move. You can just have that mouth call available for it. So I think it's a must for every turkey hunter to learn to be able to use a mouth call a little bit.
Why do you want to use the tube call? First of all, it's probably one of the most underused and underrated calls that's on the market. A lot of people can't use it because it takes a little practice. But this call is made of plastic and latex and a rubber band that holds the latex in place. After I've wetted my bottom lip, I place my lip right here on the latex, the top part of the plastic. And by putting pressure against the latex with my lip like this, by blowing air over my lip, I produce sounds. The more pressure, the higher the note. Less pressure, lower the note. One single note, I'm going to make the noise just blowing air over my lip. To produce the yelp, I'm going to drop my pressure off of it from high to low. To produce the clucks or cuts, I'm just going.
A turkey hunter can literally sound like a whole flock of turkeys out there if they need to in a given situation.
Think about it this way. If you was building a house and you left out some of the procedures, how good of a house would you have? Same way with turkey hunting. It's like going to battle. The more calls you have, the better your chances are going to be, because it's different sounds of different turkeys. The more versatile you are, you're better prepared.
Don't be satisfied with one call. Get several ones and try them, and you're going to find one that you're going to like better than any of the rest of them.
If I had one call that I could pick for you, the beginner, to start out with, it would be the box call. Box call is the simplest. You can do the basic call that's required to call a bird in. The yelp, the cluck, and the purr. The box call. That's an easy one.
Take a double reed call and learn to use that. But if you were going to go hunting this year and you're new at hunting, get a box call and practice that box call. You can buy videos to learn the box call. You can listen to the wild hens on the videos. You can go out in the woods and learn from the turkeys.
For the beginner, I would probably recommend a box call or a slate call. Those are probably the two calls that are the most easily mastered in a short amount of time. And I think you could take a little kid and run a box call within about 5 minutes. If they can just get the rhythm down, they're really simple calls.
You know, if you take a good call like this and you can acquire turkey sounds right away, you're going to have more confidence and you're going to feel better when you go hunting, because you have the ability to call that turkey. And that's why these calls are so good and work so well for you. The ease of use and the realism of sound that you can achieve as a first-time turkey hunter.
When there's a new turkey call on the market, I try it. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to use that call no matter what. I may go back to my old favorite. But with the new technology and new materials being used today, I think it's smart for every turkey hunter to try as many calls as he can, because sooner or later he's going to find that call that he just loves.
When you get to the woods and you get set up on a turkey, I like to wait till I hear those first crows call in the distance before I'll start to make my first turkey call. And remember, the first calls that you make to that gobbler should be very soft and subtle. Tree calls are the best way to go. Don't get him too excited while he's still on a limb.
So many times hunters will start calling really too aggressive too early, and let that bird start gobbling on his own and start hitting him with some light tree calls. And so many times they've been watching videotapes and just, and we've been hammering the birds. I'm guilty of, showing the guys how to really hammer birds, and the bird's up in the roost. He got him gobbling so much he has to wipe his sweat off his head with his wing every now and then. He knows that hen's about to, she's about to explode, and he's waiting on that hen. So I suggest doing some light turkey tree calls, let the bird hit the ground, then you can start piling in and start pouring the coal to him.
Once the turkey flies out of the tree, becomes vocal on the ground, that's when you should begin calling. So basically, your calling session, excited, with feeling, shouldn't really begin until the turkeys are down on the ground, off the roost after daylight.
The first call I'll give him is a tree call. Then he gobbles. He's heard me. If that happens to you as your first hunt, he heard you. He's communicating with you. He says, I hear you. I'm responding. Call to him a few more times. If he cuts your call, cutting meaning he interrupts your call, he's very interested. If you're controlling him when you're calling him, he's responding to you, he's going to come almost every time, but not every time. Almost every time. If you call too much, you're actually saying you want him more than he wants you. Mother Nature's a rule. We're trying to reverse this. We'll get him interested, make him look, shut up. Be ready to pull the trigger on your first gobbler.
If the bird flies down and he's on the ground and he gobbles, he answers your call, but he doesn't come any closer. Wait 5 or 10 minutes. I hate to put time on it. Turkeys don't wear watches, but you got to put some kind of time to teach you how to do this particular scenario or setup. Wait 4 or 5 minutes and listen to the bird. Is he going away or is he staying there? Okay, he's staying right there. Well, come back and call to him more excited. And just keep calling at that bird every 3 or 4 minutes until you can tell either he's coming closer or he's not coming at all, or what is the bird doing? If he finally, he may want you to come to him. They like the hen to come to him.
A lot of times the aggressive type calling will make that bird come on in, where if you sit back and you're not aggressive, if you just sit back and call once or twice, that hen may come up and take your bird away from you and you'll never see him. So yes, in some occasions you can't call too much.
In every hunting situation, if that gobbler's still gobbling and you have the time to hunt this bird, sit on him, wait him out. If you keep calling, he's going to stay out there and gobble forever. Remember, you don't have to make him gobble 100 times to shoot him.
If I call and he gobbles right immediately or even during the call that I'm making, that proves that he's really interested and there's a good chance he's coming in. The thing that you got to watch is if you're calling to a bird and he gobbles with a gap between us, say you're going kelp, 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 that means he's interested. If you're going kelp, 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 there's a gap in there. That gap in there will tell you that he may not be as interested as you want him to be.
If you heard him gobble, he's 150 yards, and you call again, say 30 seconds later, a minute later, he does not gobble. That does not mean he's not interested in you or your call. This could be a subdominant bird. This could be a 2-year-old. This could be a 3-year-old that's been whipped by every bird in the country. He may sneak into you. Be listening for the spitting drum. Once you hear that spitting drum, you've been hearing this gobbling, and it's coming from where you just last heard the gobbling. That bird's getting close to gun range.
I've had an opportunity to hunt with some of the best turkey hunters in the United States, and they all have one thing in common, is persistence. They never give up, no matter what the situation is. Those are the hunters that hunt no matter what weather condition it is. They're the hunters that hunt when their turkeys are not gobbling. They get out there and they go after those turkeys and they hunt every legal moment they're allowed to be in the woods. If you want to be successful and be a good turkey hunter, keep after them. Be persistent.
I suggest, attending one of HS Strut seminars. We've got pro staff that's traveling all over the country, and most of them got real good tips and got calls available for you to actually run, and you can hear them run, and you'll be able to ask questions about. And remember, don't be bashful. Ask them questions, because that's the only way you're going to end up learning a lot of things is asking questions.
Anytime you're able to harvest a wild turkey, it's a great thrill. And being your first turkey will be one of the greatest thrills you'll ever have hunting. The American wild turkey is definitely the king of game birds. And your first one will be a tremendous adrenaline rush like nothing you've ever experienced in your lifetime. That'll be an experience, I promise you, that will stay with you and your family for the rest of your life.
Turkeys, I think, can see colors and they can really distinguish the difference between two items. So the better you blend in, the better your odds of a turkey not seeing you.
That's why the camo patterns that are out today are so very effective and they're 3D-like that it just makes you part of that woods that you're hunting.
There's a wide variety of clothing out there, but you should find a camouflage clothing that's quiet and that blends in with the terrain or the part of the country that you're hunting.
I can't stress enough how important camouflage clothing is in the turkey woods. But better than I can explain, you need to talk to the person that designs the best camo pattern out there.
In designing the Realtree and Advantage camouflage patterns, what we really try to do is try to pick a pattern, not only in color, but the pattern itself that matches in a wide variety of hunting situations. You know, one thing that we do traveling around the country hunting, not only in the southeast where I live, but also here in Montana, Idaho, and everywhere else, South Texas, we try to design the new Realtree and Advantage camo patterns that will work all across the country, not just in one particular geographic, location. And I think that's one of the most important keys. You know, I've seen camouflage patterns come around a long, long way with the new technologies that are available to us, new printing technologies, new artist, drawings and conceptions that we can do from scratch. So camo patterns have come a long way, but I think one of the most important things is to choose a pattern not only in color, but a pattern that will work with you in a wide variety of situations, even your own hunting land. You know, so many times turkey hunting, you might be up against a pine tree or an oak tree, or maybe even in an open field. Pick a pattern in that morning's hunt that will, go around to all those hunting situations. Real important. You know, so many times, I get asked, what's the most important thing about turkey hunting, and what could you recommend? One of the most important things is always wearing a head net, and gloves. I've got on coats and pants right now and a hat, but there's nothing like an old white head of a turkey almost matching this hand right there. You can see the reflection coming off my hand. Same thing with my face when I go left and right. For safety purposes, number one, but being concealed, by concealing your hands and your face, are very, very important.
Why should you consider wearing a good camouflage rain suit? Hey, you're not going to shoot any turkeys if you're sitting home on the couch. Wear good clothing that'll keep you dry.
Every turkey hunter should have camouflage rain gear. There's a wide variety of rain gear out there, but today's patterns, like in Realtree, blends extremely well in the area that you're hunting.
If you've got some camouflage rainwear, it really pays to carry it, and it'll really help you blend in, and you can hang out there with those birds and stay with those turkeys all day.
If you just got a pair of leather boots, you're going to end up getting your feet wet, and they're going to end up shriveling up, and you're going to be very uncomfortable.
Think about it this way. If it rained for 2 or 3 days straight, everywhere you walked there was water. You're still going turkey hunting, aren't you? If the turkeys are gobbing, you know you are. That's why it's important to wear a good boot that'll keep your feet dry.
I look for a boot that doesn't have real deep lugs on it, because a lot of times when you're out there in the spring or fall, you're carrying mud around. And those boots, even though they're lightweight, if they're carrying a lot of mud, they get pretty heavy at times. So I'm looking for a lot of boots out there that really fit my needs. One I hunt with all the time is Rocky. I think they make probably the best boot that I've ever used when I've been turkey hunting.
Footwear is very important to be comfortable and not cause blisters, and also something that's Gore-Tex and breathable.
Because wading streams and dew in the morning in the fields and those things, it's real important that you're comfortable, because if you're not comfortable, you're not going to be a good turkey hunter.
A turkey vest is what I call a hunter's filing cabinet, because it keeps you organized. I can't tell you how many pairs of gloves and how many head nets and how many strikers that I've lost in my hunting career. But when I first started out, it was a ton of them. Now when I wear a turkey vest, I've got everything right there on my sides or in my back. But if you haven't tried a turkey vest, try one this spring, because you'll absolutely enjoy it. And half the fun is just packing it up and getting ready for opening morning.
It's kind of like a carpenter going to build a house. You wouldn't go with just a hammer. You'd go with a whole bunch of tools, and that vest will help you be able to do the job that you need to do. And plus, it offers you an opportunity to be able to tote your bird out in a comfortable position and be safe about it too.
A turkey gun should be like part of your arm, and it's important to have enough respect for that animal that you're hunting that you know the effective range of that weapon. Personally, I like the Beretta 390. I like a little bit shorter barrel. My barrel length is 24 inches, and I have it affixed with one of our aftermarket choke tubes. So I know at 30 to 40 yards, I'm shooting about 90% pattern.
If you got a 12 gauge, 2 3/4 or 3 inch with a full choke, it's probably more than capable to go turkey hunting with. You should pattern the gun and shoot it and check out its capabilities. But you can buy a new shotgun, but you probably don't need it if you already have a gun that works real well for you.
Also, if that gun has screw-in chokes, you can purchase good chokes to make that gun shoot better. Then you've got a good turkey gun.
You may already have the turkey gun, but you just really need to shoot different shells and try and see. And you may have to get the bird in closer, but know your gun. Know what it'll do.
The guys at Winchester Ammunition have a great method of patterning shotguns.
Any gun that's a 12 or a 20 gauge, whether it be a pump, a semi-automatic, or even an over and under, can make a good turkey gun. The thing that you have to keep in mind, you have to have a good full choke or extra full choke in those guns to deliver the kind of patterns you need to take a turkey cleanly. Because mainly you're aiming at the head and neck of a turkey. And so you're trying to condense all of the shot in your shot shell into a smaller area. And so you're needing to deliver a good pattern and a pellet with a lot of energy. Pellet energy is the size of the pellet or the weight of the pellet plus the velocity. So in turkey hunting, you want to look at something like a 4, a 5, or 6. That's what Winchester makes the Supreme load in. Those pellets will deliver good energy at the velocities they're going at out to 35 or 40 yards. They'll take those birds cleanly. If you get into size 8 or smaller shots like that, they just don't deliver the energy you need to take those birds cleanly. One of the things that I like to do is start out shooting with a target load like this, a lighter target load, to get familiar with your gun, to make sure that it's shooting where you're aiming and it's going to be close to the turkey loads. Then come back and finish patterning with the turkey loads to see that which shot size is working best for your gun.
A lot of today's turkey guns come through with a camouflage finish, but if you don't have a camo finish on your gun, there's absolutely a very inexpensive way to do it, either by taping that gun with a camouflage type tape like our No Mar tape that doesn't leave any kind of residue, to a gun sock for a semi-automatic or an over and under style shotgun. Another great product that's brand new to the market this year is a product called Camo Shield, and this product makes your gun look just unbelievable. It will not hurt the finish and it protects it for a long time. It's absolutely the best camouflaging product on the market today for your firearm.
So it's extremely important, no matter what gun you use, is to have one that fits you very good, that you feel comfortable, that is camouflage to get the glare factor down so you don't spook a wild turkey. And then after that, it's extremely important to have a gun that shoots a real tight pattern so you can put it on that head and neck.
Blaze orange is real important. During deer hunting seasons, it's mandatory in most states to have blaze orange. But when you're turkey hunting, you should wear it to and from the woods. When you set up at a calling station and call to turkeys, if you don't call in a bird or harvest a bird and you're going to change positions, you should probably put your blaze orange back on. And especially if you harvest a bird, put that bird in the blaze orange bag and in your vest, and show that orange when you go in and out of the woods.
Just think if you were walking out of the woods and you're carrying that turkey and his tail is all fanned out over your head and you've got a nice bright white hand carrying that turkey. It looks pretty much like a turkey's head, and there's a fan right behind it. Now think about that. That's being really, really unsafe. So I want to put him in a safety game bag, that orange, and never have a hunter mistake me from a real turkey.
Should never wear any colors that match the wild turkey's head or neck, red, white, or blue, because there might be a few hunters out there that don't positively identify their target and mistake those colors for a wild turkey.
Safety is extremely important. And I think it's important for the hunter to realize that you have to identify your target every time you go to the woods before the safety ever comes off, before the gun ever gets pointed at that object.
You always want to know what's behind your target before you squeeze that trigger. That's just part of safe gun handling. You never want to push that safety off until you know absolutely sure that you're going to take that shot. Just because you hear something walking in the leaves doesn't mean you should push your safety off. That safety is there for a reason. When you see that turkey come up, then it's time to pop that safety off real quietly.
If you have an approaching hunter, never wave out to him to let him know of your position. Always talk to him and holler out. Let him know by voice rather than by movement, because a lot of times he's heard turkey calls. He's maybe coming in, sneaking in, thinking you're a real turkey, and if you just move, sometimes that's what sparks a guy into shooting. So always let them know via your voice that there's a hunter in that location.
One thing to remember is to stay away from peer pressure when you're in the turkey woods. You don't have to kill something every time you're out there. That's not what we're after. What you're after is to have a good day and enjoy each day of field. Any experienced turkey hunter that heads to the woods, or experienced elk hunter or deer hunter for that matter, has the equipment that he needs to be successful. Not just a good gun, his favorite turkey gun, his favorite calls, his vest, and his camo, but things like rain gear, a good seat, because you might sit in one spot for 10 minutes and you might sit in one spot for 4 hours on one turkey. And 4 hours in one spot, that little rock that you might have sat on feels like a boulder 4 hours later. That's why a seat's important. A seat like our Bun Saver, which is self-inflating, which just by releasing the valve, you can change the air pressure and give yourself a totally different position without any movement at all.
And it really also keeps me real comfortable on wet grounds, and you got to keep that in mind too, because you get you back in wet, it's very uncomfortable.
Hunter Specialties also has a new product out called a strut seat, and I've field tested that product, and I tell you, it's really neat. It's an aluminum type leg seat with a webbing on it that you can set real comfortable up against a tree. It has an angle at it that you can actually set and lean back against a tree, and it allows you to have your knees up a little bit.
Also, we have a gun rest that you put on your knee. As you sit down by the tree, you put that gun rest up there, and it helps you hold your gun still and motionless until that turkey appears in gun range.
So many times I've had that bird that I'd be calling to him, and he'd be out there at 150 yards, and I'd have my gun in my lap, thinking back now, and all at once a bird would appear right here 30 yards, and it wasn't the one I was calling. But that gun rest will help you eliminate that, because you got your gun. One thing about it, it gives you an opportunity. If you got it on your knee, you can roll that knee to the left or roll it to the right. And, of course, if you set up with your gun pointed in the direction that bird's coming in from, it will help you get ahead of that game.
Super light blind is a real important part of your turkey hunting equipment. And we use blinds a lot. We hunt a lot of open country. And it helps you conceal yourself and blend in the terrain, and you sets up real quick. And if you need to move or change positions, you can pull them right up and go.
Sometimes people just cannot sit still, and having that blind will give you that little added protection and for movement. If you're moving around using your box call or your slate call, and if you don't feel comfortable, having that blind is going to help eliminate all those extra movements out in the turkey woods.
I always carry like a Maglite AA flashlight in the woods. A lot of times you're going to a bird before daylight, and there's nothing worse to go stumbling out through the woods, not knowing where you're at, running into branches, stepping on branches and breaking them, making excess noise that you really don't need to be making.
I like the little AA mag light, especially if I'm hunting in areas that I've never been to before. This light is small and compact, fits easily into your vest, and if I get into a place that I'm unfamiliar with, I pull that light out and I can see my way to get across the road or get my stuff ready at the truck. There's tons of uses for it, especially when you get to the woods, because if you've never been there before, it's a real good idea to pull that light out in case there's a fence or anything else that you may have to cross.
In a lot of states where I have opportunity to hunt, you can hunt in the afternoon, and a lot of times birds will fly up and you got to wait till it gets dark before you can start slipping out of the woods. So a fast flashlight is a very handy tool.
Also use little deals called limb lights. I can mark my way right into the birds where they're at. I can get in close early.
Field glasses or binoculars are also important in turkey hunting. There was a time and a place in turkey hunting where hunters didn't feel they needed field glasses, but all the open areas you're hunting out west, in the Midwest, farm country, binoculars is real important in scouting and also being able to identify birds at a distance.
I think binoculars are a hunter's tool where we're actually getting on equal ground with that turkey. He can see 10 times better than us. I put a pair of 10-power binoculars to my eyes and I'm right there with him.
Another neat thing to have is a little sport saw from Gerber. You can saw some of the tree limbs that might be in your way, or the little clippers so you can clip some brush when you sit down in your location.
I mean, you never know when you may have to cut brush out of your way for shooting lanes, or you can help build a blind by cutting brush. But it ain't nothing to reach over and cut a few limbs and shove them in the ground right in front of you to break your outline.
One thing to remember when calling any game, the farther that animal has to come to you, the farther that he can see your position, the more he's going to want you to come to him. I place decoys just like I'm going to set up on a turkey. When I place a decoy, I want that bird to appear at 50, 60 yards just out of shotgun range so he doesn't have to come a long way. If you put that decoy where he can see it 300 yards away, a lot of times he's going to want you guys to come to him. So it's important to remember that. You'll be a lot more successful when you use the terrain and the ground to your advantage when that approaching bird comes in, that he's not very far out of gun range.
You definitely want to check the hunting regulations. Some states it doesn't allow you to use a decoy, but they do work really well. And I like using a hen and a jake a lot of times, because sometimes that turkey comes in, he looks at that hen decoy and he's wondering, you know what, she isn't all that pretty. And he sees that jake and he's like, huh, I got me a little competition. So he starts coming in, and he's coming in kind of to whoop that little jake's butt and tell him, you better get out of here because that hen is mine. Decoy is one of the most lethal weapons there is out there in fooling gobblers.
Those old gobblers that play hard to get and hang up out there, a lot of times what happens is that gobbler hears the hen calling, but he never sees her. Now with the aid of decoys, when he sees it, oh, he thinks he's got to show off even more. That's why he'll go ahead and come on and commit and start strutting, coming into the decoy.
One last little item I like to throw in my turkey vest is a game bag. I want the safety game bag. Once I've taken my turkey, I always want to think about being safe, so I'll have that orange bag, stuff him in there, and carry my turkey out and go home and be proud of him.
Several years ago, I had a guy walk up to me that had got shot, and he was explaining to me he had shot a turkey and kept his head net on, and he reached down and he picked him up like I've done a bunch and threw him over his shoulder, and he was walking up a little high ridge. He was going to help his buddy try to call the bird in, but he was actually closer to him than what he thought he was, and he pointed out that I had that bird gripped by my hand, and it wasn't nothing showing, my face wasn't, and just bare hands. I took my glove off, and then I had this tail fan come up, and it looked like a strutting turkey. And he ended up getting shot. And I've always had that fear, and that bag can help eliminate that.
As I said earlier, safety is the first thing we got to think of. Safety is most important. But you know, you don't always got to use that safety game bag for turkey hunting. You use it for small game, rabbit, quail, pheasant, whatever. And it's blood-proof. It's a neat thing.
One thing that's probably overlooked by a lot of people in turkey hunting is a hunter safety certificate. Some states it's mandatory that you have one no matter how old you are. Some states it's after a certain year, but you always want to check the regulations of where you're hunting to make sure. And if you need one, you're going to have to plan plenty in advance to go take a hunter safety course.
Every turkey hunter anywhere in the world should read the regulations to the area they're hunting. It's so important. Find out all about the turkeys, the regs, the regulations, all the rules before you ever go into the woods.
You never want to go to the turkey woods without a hunting license. It's very important that we remain ethical hunters and take that kind of responsibility upon ourselves, because there's a lot of folks out there that are trying to take all hunting sports away from us, and we need to be as ethical and responsible conservationists as we possibly can.
One of the most important parts of turkey hunting, and probably will make you the most successful, is scouting and know the land that you hunt.
The more you know your terrain of the area, the better your odds will go up of harvesting a wild turkey. The wild turkey is a pretty unique bird, and believe me, he lives out there 365 days a year. He knows his home.
In the fall, it's very, very important to locate the flocks, of course, to hunt those birds. In the spring of the year, you're not going to call any turkeys if they're not there. You've got to hunt the turkeys where the turkeys live, and your scouting will tell you not only the amount of turkeys, the type of turkeys, and the places they're feeding and all that. Scouting is very, very important in turkey hunting.
One thing that I never do before the season comes in is actually call to those turkeys, because what you do then, you're just educating those turkeys for the upcoming turkey season. You make them smarter and a lot more difficult to come to the call.
Turkeys are pretty patternable because they basically have several things on their mind. One of them definitely in the springtime would be the gobblers are looking for hens for breeding purposes. But two, those hens and gobblers are feeding, and especially the hens. So know the food source that they're feeding on and what they're looking for. And if you find the scratching and things of that nature, dig up the ground a little bit or kick the leaves back and find out what these turkeys are actually scratching for, whether it's acorns or whether it's different types of grubs or insects or different berries that they're maybe picking up or grain or whatever.
Scratchings will tell you a lot about turkeys, where they're feeding, where they're spending time, and the amount of turkeys in an area. If you find little areas where they've been scratching, there's probably a few more turkeys in there. If you're only seeing 2 or 3 here and there, it might be 1 or 2 turkeys.
Roosting turkeys, or putting a turkey to bed, as a lot of people call it, is going out in the evening and listening for turkeys to fly up the roost. In open country, you can actually watch the turkeys leave a field and fly up, or in the prairie. But you can owl hoot or use a crow call or something to make a turkey gobble in the evening when he goes to roost, and you have his location for the next morning's hunt.
A strutting area or a strut zone is generally an area where that gobbler can go and show off to his hens, and he actually breeds hens there. A lot of times you can find a pattern in a turkey, especially before the season, as they fly down. When those hens are receptive, they fly down, they get to that area, and those hens come to him right there. Sometimes that gobbler will do it 20 mornings in a row.
When I'm out scouting, I'm going to look for several things. I'm going to look for food sources, I'm going to look for turkey tracks, I'm going to look for droppings, I'm going to look for feathers and scratchings where the turkeys are actually feeding. Tracks, one thing, when I see tracks, this is going to tell me something about the turkeys in the area. Usually the smaller tracks are obviously going to be hens, the larger tracks are going to be gobblers.
You can identify the birds that you're scouting by what the droppings look like. The gobbler is usually long and J-shaped, and the hen is small like a popcorn kernel.
But scouting, if you have your homework done and know where there's a couple different birds located, you know where the creeks, the fences, the feeding areas and things like that are, and your homework's done, it makes your job a whole lot easier.
You found the bird, and now you're going to pick a spot to start calling that bird into you. That's the setup.
Setup of any hunt, any calling situation on gobblers can make or break the hunt.
And the setup is, in my opinion, where most turkey hunters make a mistake, is where they set up. They do all their scouting, they have all their equipment, and then they don't set in the right or proper place to kill a turkey.
The ultimate setup is that you're between where that turkey is and where he wants to be. But obviously that doesn't always happen, and that's why using turkey calls can really help you out. And setting up, a turkey generally likes to come uphill or the same level as where he wants to go, or if he hears that call, you're a lot better uphill or on the same level as him.
He's more comfortable coming up that hill, I think, because he can see better. That gives him a little bit more, I think, of an edge, that he's in a more of a comfort level when he's coming up a hill or he's on the same level with you.
Bottom line is, I think there's a bubble meaning a distance within all gobblers that you can get inside of and touch him to get him interested in that call, especially if he's vocal. I don't care how many hens he's got. If you play your card right and call right, you can get him to progress to the edge of that bubble.
Too many turkey hunters try to call turkeys long distances and through obstacles or barriers. A turkey do what they want. They live there. They go uphill, they go downhill. But you as a hunter, on your setup, you want to be able to see 25 to 30 yards in front of you, make it easy for him to come to you. You don't want to see the turkey until you can kill him. And by getting 75 to 100 yards, you eliminate a lot of hang-ups and a lot of problems in calling turkeys.
I always feel that if I can see him, he can see me. And if I can see him for 200 yards, he can see me for 200 yards. And if I'm calling, he's going to say, well, that's just a tree over there. I don't see no hen. I'm just going to hold my ground and stop.
Also, you don't want to put any obstructions between him and you, like fences. A single strand of barbed wire can hang a turkey up. Creeks, roads, or anything like that. You want to make a nice path from where he's at to come to you.
I also want a good tree to set up against where it's going to kind of block my outline. And also, I don't want a lot of brush because I want to be able to maneuver a little bit. If the turkey goes off of the path where you think he's coming straight into you, he may venture off and go to a little bit to the side, and I want to be able to ease around without being caught in the brush and having too many trees in a way where I can't swing my gun and get it into a shooting position.
There's nothing better to break up your outline than a log jam or a deadfall, or sometimes even just the foliage of spring bushes. You know, the most important thing is you want to stay in the shadows and break up your outline. It doesn't always have to be a tree.
Yeah, it's very important to be in the shadows. You don't want to set in direct sunlight and reflect off you, and the bird can see you quicker in direct sunlight. It's always good to be in the shadows. Your camouflage will work better in the shadows too. If
you can't find a tree as broad as your shoulders, don't leave the area. There may be something else there that you can pick up, whether it's a large rock, maybe even a little bit of a brush pile or something that's been stacked up. I've used log piles. I've used mounds of dirt where actually maybe a logging road where they pushed dirt up, where I've set in against mounds of dirt. Just try to find something that'll break up your image and not skyline you.
Especially if you got a small child or a hunter that hadn't got a lot of experience. Even if you're a new hunter getting started, I would recommend using a blind because it gives you more confidence and you can get away with so much more.
After I turn and put my opposite shooting shoulder to where I think the shot is going to be, I try to pull up my left knee with a gun rest on it and lay my gun on that gun rest on my knee so I can sit there comfortably. You know, a lot of hunters will sit there with a gun across their lap using their turkey calls, and the bird comes in. If the bird comes in, all of a sudden they got to lay their call down and then pick up their gun, and all that movement, it's taking a good chance of spooking that gobbler.
We don't want to say you don't move at all, because if you have your shotgun up and you hear the turkey approaching and you can't see him yet but you can hear him, you need to shift to keep yourself in position to shoot that bird. So it's very, very important not to move when you can see the turkey, but you can get away with a little bit of movement.
Some situations, It's inevitable. You can't predict where that turkey's going to show up. You're pointed off the ridge here to your right, and that turkey shows up way over your left shoulder. Well, if you set up right and pointed your left shoulder in the direction that you thought that turkey was coming, you don't have to move your whole body. But you can't make a move when that turkey's looking at you or sideways, because again, he has that 270-degree peripheral vision. What you want to do is let his head get obstructed.
Try to wait for that turkey to either get behind a big tree where he's not going to see you move, or maybe he's in full strut, and watch him. And if he turns where his tail is blocking his vision, that's the time to make your move.
If you got a bird in and you can't get a shot, just quit calling, and so many times they'll sit there for 20 or 30 minutes and then they'll ease off, and then you can reposition yourself and start calling, and the bird will come right straight back in.
A lot of times these gobblers, if you got hilly terrain between you and him, he'll come to the break of that hill and he'll stop and just periscope, looking over that hill, and sometimes you can't see him, especially if he's out there 60, 70 yards. He'll see you before he sees him, so move real slow. It's the last place you just heard him gobble. But if he's coming fast, covering ground quick, sometimes we got to move quick.
If you've got a bird coming to you and he's in full strut, one of the things that you've got to watch is his neck and head will be pulled back into his feathers, and those feathers will block the vital areas that you're shooting for. One of the things I like to do is maybe give just a cluck or a putt to get him to throw his head up and look for you if he's in range, and that'll expose his vital areas that you're shooting for.
There's a lot of different ways to use decoys, and a decoy is another tool like anything else in turkey hunting. Sometimes they work better than others, but the best setup, I believe, for decoys is in a clearing or in a field. I generally don't use those in the woods where it's thick, unless it's a real open logging road or open woods. But the edge of a field about 20 yards to your left, if you're right-handed and you expect the bird to approach somewhat from the right, I'll put the decoys off my left side about 20 yards, and so that I can be able to shoot with my left shoulder turned and follow that bird's approach to those decoys off to my left.
And it's also great using it as a yardage marker. You can put it out and you know exactly that it's 20 yards from you. You can step it off to where you sit down at your tree. That way when the turkey comes in, you know he's in range.
The turkey is unpredictable. You never know what they're going to do. You can work extremely hard and put everything together, and it just doesn't work sometimes. And other times you can just go out there and sit down and one just happen up on you.
Turkey hunting is challenging. Turkey hunting is fun and exciting, but it also can be frustrating because there is absolutely no guarantees. I'd love to tell you that if you take one of our field champion box calls out and yelp on it 3 times every time, that there'd be a turkey run up to you, but that's the farthest thing from the truth. As you gain knowledge, you learn different tricks on turkey hunting and you become more successful, but there's nothing that's 100%.
Just about the time you think you've got him figured out and you're smarter than him, he'll prove that he's a little bit smarter than you and he can get away. Never take a wild turkey for granted until you've got your hands on his feet and putting your tag on him.
What guarantees you a bird is when you squeeze that trigger and you watch him flop. That's the only thing. You know, but I tell you this, by being a good caller and having a good setup will enhance your chances.
A turkey hunter should change his tactics depending on the situation that he's hunting.
If you're calling to a turkey and he's working in good, he's answering your calls, you know he's getting closer, all of a sudden he turns around and goes the other direction, we may have a problem. We may have another hunter in there. It may be a predator that maybe spooked him. He may have run off.
Your best move in that situation is to stop calling there, make a wide loop in the direction that he's traveling. If you know your area and you know where he might be going, your best bet is to get there before he gets there.
Once you change positions, that bird may totally change his reaction to your calling.
Way to eliminate these problems with birds hanging up on the other side of creeks or fences or whatever. This comes into scouting. First of all, know where these obstacles are at.
Maybe he's just out there being a turkey. Maybe you didn't scout that bird, and when you think he's hung up, he's really going to real hens or going somewhere else.
Or it could be, he may not be the boss gobbler. He may be a satellite gobbler looking for that lonesome hen, but the last time he was in that little area of woods that you were in might be big boy's country right there, or his territory, and he got half his feathers knocked in his back, and he stands out there and he's going to gobble, and he's going to let that hen come to him.
A turkey hunter should be willing to make changes. We all sometimes seem to get in a rut to do the same thing over and over. If it's real windy, you can't call the same way or set in the same places. If it's windy, you want to call louder and don't cover as long distances when you set up the call. Go to a box call when it's windy. Try to get down under the hills out of the wind.
One thing I like about it, because most of the time you get these spring rains and it's hit a clear up, it may be raining cats and dogs, as they call it, for 1 hour, and then all at once the sun pops out. And I've had so much good success being out there. When that sun popped out, these birds would just come to life. They'd just turn it on and they'd gobble everywhere. And you can really have some awesome hunts in the rain or right after rain breaks a lot of times.
You can walk through the woods very quiet. The dry leaves aren't crumpling underneath your feet anymore. And you can move and locate birds and get in position without spooking them. Actually a lot easier when it's quiet.
A lot of times I found most of the gobblers that I harvest on rainy days in open fields. And the reason for that is I honestly think is because they can't see and they can't hear if it's pouring down rain, but also they can see better in an open field than they can in the woods.
Take advantage of those kind of days. A lot of times, especially maybe in pressured areas, other hunters won't be out when it's windy or rainy.
Strategies for windy days, one of the best there is, common sense. If it's high, when you're hunting high terrain, hilly terrain, get low, get out of the wind. That's where your birds are going to be too, because they can't hear as good when that wind's blowing like that. And also, with the wind blowing, every little thing they're seeing is moving. They don't know what a predator really is. So they go to these secluded, out of the wind places so they can hear and they can see.
At the same time, movement now, which is normally the biggest factor to give you away, isn't quite as important as it once was, because there's limbs moving, there's leaves moving. If you're sitting there and you've got a gobbler coming up, I'm not telling you to move, but you're more likely to get away with a little bit of movement if the wind's blowing real hard. So that's an advantage you've got.
But on a windy day, it's best to use a louder call to cut the wind. On a rainy day, I like to use a louder call also, but you have to remember you want to try to stay with a waterproof type call, like a slate or glass call with an acrylic or a carbon striker. That call will cut the wind and it's completely waterproof.
You adjust your tactics to the terrain, to the weather conditions, and to whatever the turkeys may be doing. A turkey hunter has to be willing to change and try different things in different situations.
All turkey hunters are going to make mistakes. What makes you a better turkey hunter is by making mistakes.
The number one mistake that beginning turkey hunters make is that, first of all, they don't have confidence in their calling and their calls and their calling, and they're scared to do it. And you should never be scared when you hit the turkey woods. But the number one mistake is that they call way too much. And what that does, it actually hangs that turkey up.
Way to harvest these gobblers and outsmart these gobblers is once you know they've answered your call and they're committed, they're gobbling, they're progressing, coming to you. Once you know that, shut up.
I think that can be the best advice for a new hunter. If you know that bird's coming in, let him come on in. If he's already committed, you've already called to him, he's coming, let him come on in.
I hate to say that someone can call too much, because I feel if you sound like a turkey, it doesn't matter. But if you don't sound just like a turkey, maybe you can call too much or too loud.
But as the bird approaches, the main thing to remember is the closer he gets, the softer you want to call. The farther away he is, the louder you want to call.
Just like we speak in different volumes at different yardages to people. If somebody was 100 yards away, obviously I'd scream. If they're 5 feet away, I'd talk in a normal voice. Turkeys are the same way. You don't want to talk to a turkey that's 50 yards away as loud as you can call. You want to control that volume.
Is it possible we can be too close to birds on the roost? Yes, it is. You get too close, you can spook them or bump them.
But yeah, you don't want to get right in on a bird and bump them off the roost. You should stay back, 50, 60, 70, 75 yards is that good range to be in, and use the terrain to get set up.
I like to recommend back up away from the bird, give him opportunity to fly down. A lot of times when he flies down, then you make him move in if you want to set up at a different setup. He's on the ground, he can't see as good. But in early spring, it's not as much foliage out in the tree, and that bird, he'll surprise you how far he can see you coming through the woods.
We travel all across the country. We talk to many different turkey hunters, and they'll say the biggest thing to any turkey hunting that would make you a great hunter is being patient.
An old man told me this several years ago, and I get to thinking about it, and it is so true. He said, the best advice I can give you, if you work in a bird and you can have all you want of it and you're ready to go, he said, if you'll wait 15 minutes, a lot of times he said you'll shoot a bird in that last 15 minutes after you're ready to go. Like you sat and you said, well, I'm ready to go. If you'll wait 15 more minutes, a lot of times, a lot of things can happen in that last 15 minutes, and he is so true.
If you're not patient, the smart longbeard gobbler will use that to his advantage and get away from you. Patience does pay off.
This day and time, with as many turkey hunters as there is, and our turkeys are getting educated. You know, there's always tricks up our sleeves and things that we do to entice gobblers or to outsmart them with calling. And one of my favorites is I'm versatile. I use more than one call and I sound like several different hens.
So many times you may have a bird that don't like, that particular sound that you're making with that call, and you can change from a mouth call or to a box call or to a slate. And I would recommend to use 3 or 4 different type calls.
You may want to have a box call and a friction, a slate call to change the type of yelp or the sound that you make. But yes, you can make the mistake by yelping 3 times the same tone, same level, 3 times, same tone, 3 times. Turkeys don't call like that. Turkeys call with excitement. When they get excited, you should get excited.
It's crazy to understand and figure out why a turkey will respond to one call versus another call. But I've seen it time and time again while I've been out in the woods, that one day they'll respond to a box call, the next day they'll respond to a slate call better than the box call, and maybe the next day a mouth diaphragm is much more efficient than the slate call. So I carry all those types of calls with me, and if they don't gobble for one, then I'll switch up.
Think about it. It's mating season. It comes once a year. You're no gobbler. What would you do if you heard 4 hens compared to 1 hen? Who would you go to first?
When you shoot a turkey, when you've done all the things right and the bird is in, if your setup is right, you can't see the turkey and you kill him, he's close enough, visible beard, you can see what's behind the turkey, in front of the turkey, you make a good shot. When you make a shot like that in 25 yards or in, you know exactly what's going on. The bird goes down. Stand up slowly, watch the bird's reaction. If the head comes up or the head's up, you should probably shoot the bird again.
If you make a good head shot, head and neck in the vital areas, that turkey's going to flop. Rarely do you see a turkey ever just hit the ground and just lay there.
A lot of times his nervous reaction causes him to flop around and look like he's suffering, but he's absolutely expired. And what you don't want to do is unload your gun into him, because you'll ruin all the good eating meat of that wild turkey.
One of the things that most hunters do in this situation, they get up and they run right away to the dead turkey. That's probably a big mistake. First of all, for safety reasons. One, your adrenaline is still pumping. Who knows if you have a live round in, ready to go off again because you forgot to put the safe on. Who knows that as you're running toward that turkey, you trip over a limb or step in a hole or could hurt yourself in that way.
So stop before you get up. Just sit there and wait for a second. Make sure you don't need a second shot. And the turkey will flop for a little bit. Then he's going to finally end up just laying there. Then you can walk up, pick him up, and admire your trophy.
Best thing to do is just go up if you can and put your foot on his head and let him do some flopping, and go ahead and get all that out of the way. And so many cases of guys that's got spurs in their hands that had to have stitches, that the bird actually beat up on them a lot. And so you really need to be careful and expect a lot of flopping.
Once you have a successful hunt and you take a turkey, you need to check your regulations in the state or the part of the country you're hunting and tag that bird. Most states, you tag it immediately after you harvest the bird. So before you ever put it in your vest or put it in your orange bag, you should get that tag on there. If you have to sign it or date it, you do it right then, right there, because that's the rules and regulations. And that's why we have turkey hunting like we have today, because of people following those regulations and tagging the birds and doing the things that we need to have wild turkeys.
Also, if you want to mount that bird, a neat thing, this orange safety game bag that we have is a great way to keep your bird from getting torn on the limbs and stuff when you pack it out. It's also a great safety feature.
The National Wild Turkey Federation is a friend of every turkey hunter. They're one of the big reasons that the wild turkey thrives in the 49 of the 50 states of the United States today.
The National Wild Turkey Federation is a great organization to belong to as a turkey hunter that teaches ethics, safety, sportsmanship, about the resource. And you know, without all the work that they do on restoration programs and property and grounds to hunt turkeys, we wouldn't have turkey hunting like we have today.
They've done a lot of good things to educate the wild turkey hunter. They've done a lot of good things to help educate the different state agencies in the United States about the wild turkey.
There's a National Wild Turkey Federation, and then there's the State Turkey Federation in each state, and then there's your local Turkey Federation chapter that will be within your state.
If it wasn't for the National Wild Turkey Federation, you and I wouldn't have a place to hunt, or we wouldn't have birds to hunt. This is a great organization that helps transplant turkeys all across the United States.
And it's a great time. They do fundraisers to help with the wild turkey, and you meet people, you go to calling contests. There's so many things you can do.
The National Wild Turkey Federation is a must for a new turkey hunter. You definitely would have an opportunity to associate with new hunters like yourself or experienced hunters.
One of the most rewarding things, other than going out and getting your first turkey, is introducing someone else to the sport. Whether it's a youngster, a female, or a grown person that's never been turkey hunting, it's just absolutely an incredible feeling to sit there and watch as this person enjoys an incoming gobbler, that hears the gobbles, hears the spitting and drumming, hears other hens yelping, and just learns the sport that you come to love so much. That's probably, to me, the most rewarding part of my job, is to actually take people hunting that have never got the chance to enjoy the actual sound of a spring morning unfolding.
So yeah, share the outdoors with them. Teach them how to go out and hunt. Teach them safety, ethics, and respect of the wild turkey. And that's very important for all of us, to share the things that we've learned and we enjoy so other people can enjoy the resource.
I honestly believe that they probably are one of the better conservation organizations in the United States today.
NWTF is an awesome organization. It's also great for beginning hunters. If you want to learn something about turkey hunting, become an NWTF member.
Yes, there's one over there.
Anytime you're able to harvest a wild turkey, it's a great thrill. And being your first turkey will be one of the greatest thrills you'll ever have hunting. The American wild turkey is definitely the king of game birds. And your first one will be a tremendous adrenaline rush like nothing you've ever experienced in your lifetime. I'll promise you this, anytime you hunt turkeys, you'll probably never quit. Rarely, if ever, I don't think I've ever met the man that's hunted wild turkeys and said, you know, this just wasn't no fun. I couldn't go do this again. And when you get the opportunity to get that first kill, I promise you, you'll be on a high that you'll never come down. That'll be an experience, I promise you, that will stay with you and your family for the rest of your life.
Now that you have viewed this volume of the HS Strut University, you can go even further in depth into a variety of turkey hunting subjects through the other volumes from HS Strut University. Volume 1, So You Want to Be a Turkey Hunter, is the definitive guide for beginning turkey hunters, new turkey hunters, or seasoned veterans looking for a refresher course. So You Want to Be a Turkey Hunter features the insight of the HS Strut Pro staff as they draw from a combined 150 years of turkey hunting experience. Nowhere will you find a more complete guide to turkey hunting than Volume 1, So You Want to Be a Turkey Hunter. Volumes 2, 3, 4, and 5 are combo packs that include a video and an HS Strut turkey call. Each video includes exclusive footage you won't find on any other tape and features in-depth instruction from the HS Strut Pro staff on how to get the most out of that call. Volume 2, Box Calling 101, includes a natural field champion box call and a 30-minute video detailing the types of box calls, how to get a variety of sounds from a box call, and why the box call has been the turkey call of choice for generations of turkey hunters. Volume 3, Mouth Calling 101, is a complete 30-minute course on how to select, use, and master the versatile mouth call. Mouth Calling 101 includes 3 HS Strut Premium Flex Diaphragm mouth calls. Volume 4, Friction Calling 101, reviews the many types of friction calls available, the numerous materials used in friction calls, when they work best, and how to get realistic turkey sounds from any friction call made today. This 30-minute tape includes the HS Strut Black Widow Glass Friction Call. Volume 5, Locator Calling 101, gives you an in-depth look at the correct calls to use to locate turkeys from sunrise to sunset. Locator Calling 101 includes 30 minutes of instruction on all locator calls and comes with HS Strut's new Palmer Hoot tube. No matter what your level of experience, the HS Strut University gives you the advantage of 150 years of turkey hunting insight. The HS Strut University, higher education for turkey hunters. And for real turkey hunting excitement, look for the Cuttin' and Struttin' series of hunting videos from HS Strut. HS Strut hunting videos pride themselves on non-stop hunting action from all parts of the country, loaded with tips and tactics that apply to turkey hunters everywhere. The Cuttin' and Struttin' series of videos from HS Strut. It's as real as it gets.